You were the first international president from outside the United States, literally the first international president. And while every recent president has been concerned about global affairs, especially as they relate to Israel, I know that this had an especially important place in your heart. Was there a relationship between these two facts, or is it just a coincidence?
Hardly a coincidence. I grew up, as all of you know, I grew up in B'nai B'rith, Canada. And I had the distinct pleasure, as I rose through the ranks of the Board of Governors and the senior officers in B'nai B'rith, Canada, I had the great opportunity to travel and to get a feeling at a very young age of what a Jewish organization like B'nai B'rith can do in other countries. My first trips to Europe were all in Iron Curtain countries. I was in Hungary, I was in Romania, I was in Russia, and I will tell you, I had a very great opportunity when I was president of B'nai B'rith Canada. We were the only Jewish organization to have a private audience with King Hussein when he was visiting in Canada. So I got the global affairs bug very, very early. Of course, all of the annual missions that we did culminated in a trip to Israel. And again, at a very young age, I had the opportunity to meet with Israeli politicians and go through the program in Israel and see at the highest levels and meet people at the highest levels that helped formulate the beginning of our country of Israel. And it was a fabulous experience for me. The year I was president, I took a delegation to the Soviet Union, to Russia, that had just started to break out from its old communist ways. And I can remember I had the opportunity to speak in the cemetery in Leningrad, where for the first time in 70 years, people were allowed to get together to celebrate Yom HaShoah. And it was a vigil, an overnight vigil, where people were speaking constantly and presenting Jewish writing and Jewish prayers and poetry. And I can remember I came from the Soviet Union, from Russia, to Israel with 500 names in my hand to turn over to the Jewish agency of people that wanted to, Jewish people that wanted to go to Israel. And I can remember making a speech there at that time where I told, in the few little Jewish phrases I know, I spoke to them, and I told them to not be afraid to go to Israel because they were the future of Israel. Today I was there and I told them I'm talking to the future of the state of Israel and to be happy to go there. And of course the Jewish agency was happy to receive the 500 names, and they started the process. We know what followed from that. So when I got to B'nai B'rith, all I have to tell you, I don't know if it's because I was a younger guy, if I was the young guy, I don't know what the reason was, but every president that's sitting here with me on the stage, including Joel Kaplan, who appointed me his chairman of the executive, gave me the opportunity at the highest levels to travel with them, to go on their missions wherever they were going, and it was a great experience for me, a great training opportunity for me, a continuation of my training that I got in B'nai B'rith, Canada. And really, I from my first appointment to the Young Leadership Cabinet, when Richie was the chairman, Seymour Moishe appointed me first of all to the Board of Governors and then to the Leadership Cabinet. And through them all, Kent took me everywhere. Tommy asked me to go on missions for him in his stead. And Richard, of course, I traveled with all the time. And Joel's confidence in me to appoint me as chairman of the executive have just been exceptional. My love for the state of Israel started way, way back when I was a young boy. And it formulated how I behaved during my time as chairman of the executive and during my time as president of the organization.
You devoted a great deal of your presidency to Latin America. We've heard
Yeah, some people said I lived there, actually.
Well, many of your priorities took root during your presidency, and we continued working on them for many years until they finally came to fruition. I think there can be no better example than the Inter-American Convention Against Racism and All Forms of Discrimination. You were largely responsible for launching the groundbreaking effort to have anti-Semitism referred to specifically in this treaty. I can recall your speaking at OAS annual plenaries in Latin America. The treaty, of course, was ratified this year. Talk about Latin America, why this particular measure was important, and how Latin America fits into the B'nai B'rith picture.
The Latin American experience for me was very, very interesting. In the time of Tommy's presidency, he asked me to go to Argentina to represent B'nai B'rith International at a conference on anti-Semitism and anti-terrorism. And it was my first experience in Latin America. And the people that I met in Argentina, the Jewish community people that were part of the B'nai B'rith family that I met in Argentina, were exceptional people. Warm people, welcoming to beyond what you could ever imagine. The other thing that, and I'll talk about it, at that trip I also had the opportunity to go to Uruguay, and I also had the opportunity to go to Sao Paulo. And I had the opportunity to meet with the B'nai B'rith family in 3 countries at one time on my first B'nai B'rith trip to Latin America. And I saw my brothers in Sao Paulo having to live behind gates. Everybody was afraid of their security, and the Jewish community in front of the B'nai B'rith building in Montevideo, big pillars were there, so I guess to ward off an attack by a vehicle or whatever. And in Buenos Aires, it was the same. We was shortly after the AMIA and the embassy bombing, and that's why they were holding this conference on anti-terrorism. I had an opportunity to go to the court with our brothers and sit in the court for a day session, and the Latin American experience touched me in that visit. And as time progressed, I got to go to Latin America more and more, depending on who was the president and what we were doing there. For example, I was there in Argentina when Richie received from the president of Argentina the highest non-military honor that could be bestowed on a person. The work that we did, all of us, okay, I was there more, working with our brothers and sisters in all of the countries of Latin America. But the work that we all did in Latin America, I think bodes well for our community, our Jewish community, and our B'nai B'rith community in those countries. They were active, they were strong. In Montevideo, it was one of the 50,000 people in a very strong, committed Zionist community. In Argentina, that at that time when I first started going there, when we first started to go there, 250 to 300,000 Jews, a strong, vibrant community, a community that trains all of the rabbis for the whole of Latin America. There's something about being in Latin America, and with all of the hardships that go there, with all of the currency fluctuations that happen year after year, if it 5 years great, 5 years not so great, all of those things, I think it touches you, and you want to work with the people in Latin America. I know one of the things that I besides the OAS work and all of those things, I mean, my first OAS representation was in Quito. I went to Quito and I had the opportunity to present our case in Quito at the OAS, and I continued then. Once I went to the OAS one time, I went every year. and up on to including to the end of my presidency. And I had the opportunity to continually present our case for human rights, for the fight against anti-Semitism, and we talked. It's very interesting. We talked about the scourge of money laundering. We talked about the difference between rich and poor. We talked about issues that were germane to the population of Latin America, and not just our issues. And I think that's what really sets us apart in the work that we do, whether it's in Latin America, where we work like mad. We talk about our staff and how great they are. Really, the staff that we have in Latin America with such small budgets accomplish so much. It really is an amazing thing to watch. But really, the setting apart for our organization is we don't just speak for ourselves. We speak for everybody.
So we've got one issue to go, and then I'm going to ask Alan if he'd make a comment or two. We hadn't planned on this, but I think it would be a nice thing to have. But the issue is young leadership, and a vexing issue, and not just for B'nai B'rith, it's a vexing issue for every Jewish organization, the whole idea of Jewish continuity, turning it over to the next generation. Both of you, Richard and Moishe, played an important role in getting that B'nai B'rith ball rolling. So, Richard and Moishe, a couple of comments on that, and then we'll go to Alan.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Many of us here we're honored to receive the B'nai B'rith Label Cats Award. But what we tried to do also is instill in young people a sense that there is a great, proud past and an unbelievable need, and therefore to get involved in building a great future. And I said at the beginning, none of us as presidents reinvented the wheel. So Dan and I talked about maybe we didn't need to reinvent the wheel of reaching out to a partner organization that already was committed to building young leadership. And so we reached out to the AEPI Jewish fraternity as the largest Jewish fraternity, oldest Jewish fraternity, largest Jewish fraternity in the world. We negotiated an agreement. I remember we signed the agreement. Dan and I signed the agreement. I'll hand it over to Moishe because he implemented it, and the fruits are clear.
Thank you for that, Richard. I must tell you that I can remember my installation convention very well in New Orleans because before I ever had the opportunity almost to get my suit on, Richard brought Andy Borens and a couple of other AEPI brothers and insisted that we sit down at a table, and we talked about the agreement that was there, and we talked about what were we going to do with it, how were we going to finally put this together. And they explained to me what was signed, and I loved it. First of all, I loved Andy and the guys that were around the table. And secondly, I loved the idea of the opportunity for us to get back on campus in a meaningful way. And AEPI would give us that opportunity to do joint programming on the campuses in the United States, delivering the B'nai B'rith message and delivering the world message and delivering the Jewish unity message. And I don't have to explain it. For those of us that are here, for those of us that are on the executive committee, for those of us who attend any meetings, the AEPI participation with our organization is second to none. And the AEPI brother, first of all, you need to know this. I never went to university, right? So when Andy invited me to become an honorary AEPI brother, for me, it was something exceptional. And I went through the process. I was installed as a brother, and the greetings that the AEPI brothers give to each other when they meet each other, wherever it is unbelievable. I will tell you, we have the opportunity to continue with this partnership, to continue to develop this partnership, and they will become a nucleus of our future for our organization, the organization that we all worked hard for to bring us to 170 years, the relationship with AEPI, and the energy that they bring to our organization bodes very, very well for our future.